Alright guys, welcome back to another Jurassic Live video. So today, again, joined with Temerity to discuss, try to emphasize on a bit too hard, the A minus tier dinos in 1.9 slash 1.10, just because 1.10 isn't like that big of an update. But hey, we'll call it that. It's, most of these are based on the 1.9 changes, but there are some 1.10 stuff in there as well. So anyways, let's go over them then. So starting with, again, alphabetical order, let's start with the first one. Ankylosaurus. So Ankylosaurus has been around this range for a while. I mean, if you just look at it, 4,560 health, 1,000 damage, 114 speed, 5% crit, 30% armor, Superiority Strike, long invincibility, rampage, short defense, and swap and invincibility. Like overall, it's a decently bulky dino. 30% armor. You got the health as well, which is sub 5k, but it's more than 4,000. In fact, it's 4.5k. And I mean, the damage isn't terrible. Never mind, it's terrible. I mean, it does have one rampage, but like that's about it. It has 1-2 times multiplier, and then gone. It does have shields, 2 shields in fact, but like it's too one-dimensional, right? Well, 3 shields if you count the swap in one, which is probably the best function of this dino, anyways. But it's so easily destroyed by any shield breakers. It's not even funny. So obviously that's its big weakness is shield breakers. But it does have some bright spots as well, as I mentioned before. Swap and invincibility against an Earldom cloaked rampage, although it still loses to Earldom. But if you want to save a critical dino on your team without sacrificing too much, you could throw this in against the Earldom's cloaked rampage or whatever. Take that hit and deal some damage and then die. But yeah, overall, it doesn't do too much. I'm personally not a huge fan of Ankylos, so yeah, let's see what Tim has to say about Ankylos.
Yeah, this is one of those tanks that are fairly easy to make in the beginning that can get you up to like low aviary. Um, it has good team synergy. The turn one rampage is nice to have. This, like you said, swap invincibility is probably ability that has, meaning like where you're gonna be mainly playing this creature, there's not too many defense shattering um dinosaurs outside of like Alocino or something like that, or Tyranno. So it does have um its clutch plays that can come up with the additional like pretty bulky bird. Fairly good speed tier. It outspeeds all the 110s and below, which it definitely needed to do. But other than that, you shouldn't be leveling this past level 20 because it is prime for a hybrid soon, hopefully.
We've been saying it's gonna get a hybrid soon for like a year now. Oh my goodness, this thing.
Yeah, poor guy.
Still possible, still possible. Hold on to that DNA, okay? So, hey, we know what happens to flyer hybrids, right? They either become a Gemini
Poop.
Titan level or just a X level, right? Could go either way. Anyways, moving on to another bulky dino. We got Kentrosaurus. Kentrosaurus is, what you get if you're trying to make Trico. Let's be honest. But overall, it's a pretty fun dino. I personally like playing with it a lot. 4,980 health, 1,000 damage, 115 speed, 5% crit, 30% armor, with null strike, Thagomizer, and some invincibility and distraction, and a medium counterattack. Back when I had, when I was still running in Kentro, which was a long time ago, it's one of my favorite dinos to play around with, just because you could come to so many logical conclusions for using which move in its whole kit, and there's Most of the time it's RNG, but sometimes you could kind of logically determine which move you're gonna use, and when you get a correct prediction, that actually feels pretty good. So it used to have a lot of utility back then, but I mean right now it's not like it doesn't. Again, with a lot of the speedsters gone, or I wouldn't say gone, just not as relevant in the meta. It just doesn't do much. Like the slower dinos, the chompers are gonna kill it. The two big ones, two sauropods are gonna take them out, and a lot of the other speedsters now got immune to certain stuff. This thing kind of relies on slow and distract, right? Which also kind of screws it over. So its kit is just kind of there now. So it really doesn't do much. So Tim?
Yeah, you pretty much hit it. I mean, it's not an easy tank to make. There's better early game tanks like Stay God, Try God, Alan Kylo. I would put there. But overall, I mean, if you're looking for a fun dino to play play around while trying to get one of the best dinos in the game, then I would suggest this one. But don't over level it. Trico is too strong of a dino for way too long. So there's that.
Yeah. just what you get for Trico, I guess. So, moving on, Carboceratops. So this Tim's a huge fan, right?
I
So
love it.
yeah, 3.9k HP, 900 damage, 105 speed, 5% crit, 50% armor, superior vulnerability, dig in, devastation, distracting strike, and swap in headbutt. So since it's your, one of your favorites, you want to start on this one then?
Yeah, let's start with probably the strongest move in the game. Superiority vulnerability. So what this gives you is it gives you a way to not only increase its own low damage, but it also gives you a way to increase some of your team's damage. Dracostera, Monostego, to name a few. Um, if you surround this creature counters with two chompers, this thing will be able to take care of you. Being able to with 50% armor along with a Dagon, so it can cleanse itself and give it 10% speed, which puts it in what is that 115 speed range, which is a pretty nice speed. It gives it shield and regeneration on a dino that's not easy to take down at all. You gotta remember, if you don't have a chomper, essentially that 3900 health becomes 7800 health. So it's not an easy dino to take down at all. Um, and it comes with distracting strikes, so that that health just becomes even bigger um to come up with. The swamp and headbutt's nice, but I mean 450 damage, that's let's be realistic. That's probably not gonna what you're gonna be using it for. You're probably gonna
Mm-hmm.
swap it into a dino just to get a dinosaur out of danger. Hopefully um getting that stun off as well. And then it comes with a 3 times move. So with a lack of damage, base damage, it can still do 2700 damage, and that's not including vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean it's a really nice dino to have, but again, don't over level it past 20, and if anything, go after Smiling Nemesis.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, Carpenter is not bad. It just kind of gets like shafted by Smellammy just because that's much better. And with the scarcity of resources, you probably want to invest in that instead. And also, one more point about the swap and headbutt. Again, like Tim said, you're probably not gonna do damage with this. You're probably just gonna bail out a dino, hopefully get that stun in, and like even if you don't get the stun off, you still got 50% armor, so like it's a decent gamble. Like of all the swap and stunning dinos, this is a decent gamble. Like don't get the stun off, still 50% armor. Not you won't take too much damage, and if you do, you could turn one dig in, whatever, cleanse yourself, get the heck out of there, right? That cleanses the swap and bound as well. So overall, pretty versatile dino. This is kind of like a prime example of a support in the game, and it does a very well job of that. It just, in terms of like straight up matchups, probably not the best dino for that, but it has a lot of utility in its set. Like, not only its moves, but even its stats provide a lot of that function too as well. So moving on, Diplodocus used to be one of the better tanks in the game with 6k health, a 1.3k damage, 104 speed, 5% crit, and no armor with pinning strike, decel, rampage, shield advantage, swap, and slow. I'll start on this one. Like, Diplodocus, I mean, shield advantage is a very, very interesting move. I personally like it a lot.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. And like, even in this meta, it's still decently useful, right? And I guess the only thing that kind of hurts Diplodocus a bit in this meta is, again, immune. I mean, it's the old top. It's the theme of this whole meta, right? With the decel, right? It's 104 speed. You're mainly relying on decel to kind of pull off a good shield advantage or whatever. Not that it really needs that, but it obviously helps a lot with the slow speed. But otherwise, like, decent damage. 1.3k damage with a rampage. That's really, really good damage. Something that has 6k health, right? So there you go. Swap and slow, also very, very a very fun swap and move as well. Depending on what you're going up against, that could be a kill, right? I mean, it could be a kill next turn. So yeah, there you go. Tim, quick word on Diplodocus.
Yeah, it's more of a support style tank. Is just like a regular tank like Gemini Titan Maxima. It does have some nice team support. Like, let's say you have an injured Diplodocus, and you're going up against a creature that, like, I should say Thorodolosaurus, that you really need to. You can set it up if it was slower. Well, you can swap in slow Diplodocus, slow it down, and now you can set up against that Thor. So it does have nice utility for team support. The shield advantage, it gives it an advantage against basically any other tank that has shields if you can time it right. And then it does have fairly good damage output, being able to pin a specific dino down like Dracosera, so you don't have to deal with it later in the game. Overall, a pretty good tank. The speed hurts it a lot, but it's fun to play with. Don't level above 20.
For sure. So, moving on to Diplodocus, and go over its stats first. 3,750 health, 1,000 damage, 110 speed, 5% crit, no armor, definite strike, instant distract, distracting impact, distracting rampage, precise shouting counter, immune distraction, immune to stuns. So this is the distracting machine. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It has okay-ish damage. I mean, despite the pretty crappy base damage, it has, two decent multipliers with an impact and a rampage. And then also has, instant distraction with that counter as well. So, like, overall the damage isn't that bad, even though the base damage kind of sucks. But you could rack up some okayish damage here, all right? The health kind of sucks, but then again, it's got 3 distractions. So, the health sucks. 3 distractions, not that big of a deal. 110 speed is kind of iffy, though, for it, which, I mean, 110 speed is enough for it to do what it's supposed to do, which is just distract all those slower chompers, minus Tenontorex, for obvious reasons. And just take them out, right? For anything that doesn't cleanse, Superiority Strike, or immune, you're basically not letting them do any damage to you. So that's always fun if you could get that rolling. But obviously, hard counter also exists, which obviously immune dinos, cleansing dinos, all that stuff. So if you get in the right scenario for this thing, it could be really really great. And if you meet the hard counters, you're pretty much screwed. So it's a black and white dino. You're either gonna do really good or you're gonna get absolutely washed. I mean, you know what? Even if you do meet any hard counters, you actually do some decent damage. So there's that going for it. So Tim.
Yeah, I mean, it got a health buff, right?
Uh, Kinda, sorta.
Or something. Yeah. So it no matter what, you're probably gonna deal about 2,000 damage to whatever's in front of you. It has enough health to be able to survive at least one turn. Um, that being said, like Posey said, you're gonna want to try and get this thing in front of a chopper. It obliterates just about every chopper besides Tenontorex. I can't tell you how many times in friendlies I spent doing like 4 or 5 turns of just Trico doing no damage to it, which is a beautiful sight to see. Um, Immune to stuns, immune to distraction. It does what it does. Beats out chompers, loses to immunity.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. So moving on, Edmontoguandon. Yes, this thing's still around. No, it doesn't have a hybrid yet. So 5,220 health, 1.1k damage, 107 speed, 5% crit, no armor. Superiority Strike, Regen, Run, Nullifying Impact, Greater Stunning Rampage, Swap, and Stun. So, for what it does, I mean, like, base damage is actually not terrible for what it is, right? And then also got a Impact and Rampage. So overall, its damage output isn't as terrible as it may seem. And obviously, the biggest selling point for this thing is the 5.2k health and the regen and run, which heals what 2.6k health per pop or something, or around that number, right? So that's pretty huge. And also, once you regen and run it, you could also have that swap and stun come back. And after you regen, you will have a decent amount of HP, usually, to tank another hit, even if your swap and stun does fail. So there's that as well. Although, biggest drawback for this thing, personally, is its speed. 107 is like just bad. It does have Superiority Strike, so there's that. But on the occasion where you try to swap and stun it, and then it doesn't stun, you take a hit. Next turn, very likely you're going to take another hit before you do anything, since regen run has one turn delay. So it's it's a very RNG dependent dino. So anyways, well, that's it for me, Tim.
Yeah, this is a if you're running a swap team, this is one of the ones you want to run because it does have really good synergy. Being a beefy dino, a dino that can continuously regenerate that beefiness, and being able to swap right into a Monostego, Thylacotator, or Draco. It's a pure support style dino. It does have its other moves, which allows it to deal with a lot of different situations. Superiority Strike allows it to slow. Null will be more prevalent in the next patch with dodge getting a buff. It doesn't get to the greater stunning rampage much, but if you can get to it, I mean, 2,200 damage off a dino, it's pretty good. Other than that, it's just a pure support style dino waiting for a hybrid.
Right. Yeah. I do have to say though. I do see people using that greater stunning rampage sometimes without accounting for your opponent's CDs. So if you're one of those people, just, keep in mind your opponent's cooldown when you want to swap this thing out. so you don't just swap out into like a huge hit without anything that could mitigate it in your swapping. Okay, moving on. Giga Spica. So another tanky-ish dino, right? 4,650 health, 900 damage, 109 speed, 5% crit, 40% armor, with pinning strike, decel impact, rampage, short defense, and medium counterattack. Do you want to start this one, Tim?
Sure. This was the start of an offensive style tank. Um, it has that defensive capabilities, being able to put up short defense. Um, with a fairly good health, 4,600. With 40% armor, so it does have that going for it. But the biggest thing is it can go on the offensive.
Mm-hmm.
It can go straight into decelerating impact, into rampage, and it could just continuously do that if it needs to.
Mm-hmm.
And then it does have a little bit of additional damage coming from its counterattack. So I mean, it has that. I used to use this dino mainly for Dracosera purposes because I could just pinning strike a Dracosera, put up a short defense since it's just gonna be a speed tie with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I just go to town on it until it dies. But other than that, it it's a fairly good tank to have in the beginning. Um, but I don't see this thing being an end game tank, especially when you have Maxima and Gemini there.
Yeah, a lot of people kind of overlook the medium counterattack just because, like, overall it seems like it doesn't have that much damage. But when you like add it up, actually, that rampage is gonna do like 2,250 damage, which is really okay with considering all its other stats, right? So yeah, just be aware that it actually it is more offensive than a lot of people give it credit for. So there's that. Moving on, Gorgosuchus. So Gorgosuchus is an interesting dino. 3.6k health, 1.4k or 1,440 damage, 120 speed, 20% crit, no armor, with defense, a Shattering Strike, a Ferocious Strike, Defense Shattering Rampage, and Cleansing Impact. So this thing, it's I would say 80% of the time it's gonna be a revenge killer. You come into something with something that you would take out with one Ferocious Strike. And then the next dino coming in will face a Ferocious Boosted, Defense Shattering Rampage, or Cleansing Impact, depending on situation, with 1,440 damage, which is pretty decent, and 120 speed. Although 120 speed part is kind of problematic, but so yeah, there's that. It will do a lot of damage if you set it up right, but it does have its problems, right? The 120 speed, which seems fast, but again, you're going to lose to all the fast dinos on that one. And then the health's not that great. But overall, if you get lucky, you get that 20% crit on Defense Shattering Rampage, even against a faster dino, you might take it out. Or even a crit on the Cleansing Impact, since most of them are like around 3k health, right? So it's a okay dino. It's a pretty decent dino if you set it up right.
Yeah. The one thing I Gorgo is the versatility it has when you set it up. There's two types of dinos that's going to go up when you set it up. Either a tank or a speedster. And it has the tools to do a lot of damage to both. It have a defense shattering rampage and then a cleansing impact. With 1440 damage, it's gonna do a lot of damage either or. Like Dilorak is just gonna get obliterated. Spix is probably gonna get one shotted. But overall, like you said, 120 speed, no immunities to anything. So I mean, it can be nulled, it can be distracted or whatever. 3,600 health isn't that much. A lot of dinos can two-shot it, even if it has a ferocious strike boosted.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where it struggles at times.
Yeah. But hey, on the bright side, if you can't take something out, most of the time you'll do a decent amount of damage before you die, but then you die. So, There's that. Moving on, Monometrodon. So Monometrodon, interesting transformation, right? So let's go over stats first. 4.2k health, 1,150 damage, 125 speed, 5% crit, 0% armor, null strike, strike, fence impact, and tracking impact, and immunity. So this Magna wannabe is it's 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 pretty funny, you know. The health is okay for what it does. 125 speed kind of sucks, honestly. I was actually talking about this with Tim right before we started recording. Like, the 125 speed tier is one of the saddest speed tiers in the game. Just because, or I wouldn't even say the speed tier is just mainly Monometrodon. Just because, you know, the other relevant 125 is Sungai, which has 3 freaking slows. So it could take care of speed for the most part. But this thing, I mean, I guess the biggest problem with it is just the lack of damage, I guess, when you do want to compare it to something like a Magna, right? Also, you know, the speed. But yeah, like, it seems like a good kid. It's immune, right? It has fan chatterings. But then again, if you look at the multipliers, it's two 1.5s, and then it's sub 1.2k damage. So the biggest problem here is it just doesn't do enough damage, honestly, for what it is with the really sad speed tier. And I mean, the health's not that terrible, but you know, 4.2k is, you know, not something to really boast for. But you know, on the bright side, null strike will be increasingly useful when 1.10 actually drops. And immunity is always nice, right? So got that going for it. And distracting impact, so it doesn't die as easily in some scenarios, right? So there you go. Well, I'll mention on Tim.
Yep, you pretty much covered everything. The only thing I'm gonna say is, if there's one thing, it is set up to have a really good hybrid. I mean, it has bulk, it has decent, it has a really good kit, and it has, so I mean, this thing is set up to be really uh good with the super hybrid. The only thing it's really lacking is that damage. 1150 is just, it's not cutting it, especially in this meta where most of the dinos have equal, if not more, HP than itself does. So it's just gonna get outperformed regardless.
Yeah. So yeah, poor thing. Moving on, Monomimus. So Monomimus got a bit of a comeback, unfortunately. I say unfortunately, it's just because I really enjoyed the Monomimus getting nerfed memes. Not that I really personally care for Monomimus one way or another. Sorry, but yeah, let's go over it. 3,150 health. This damage isn't correct. The new updated one, and in 1.10, is 1,130. Got slight damage reduction, but hey, on the bright side, did get that dodge buff, which overall I think it got better with the dodge thing. Because Monomimus, unlike a lot of the other dodgers, does kind of really rely on that dodge a lot because not that great health, 127 speed, and yeah, it really doesn't have a lot of other things going for it. So it kind of does have to use that dodge in a lot of scenarios. So let's go over its moves as well: nullifying strike, tracking rampage, evasive stance, swap and dodge, and immunity. So Tim, I want to start on this one. Monomimus.
Yeah, this dino, it's in the same situation as Diplodocus. Um, you can use it for chompers. Being that it can't be slowed by Rex, you can continuously just distract Tanato,
Mm-hmm.
Trico, Thor, the whole 9 yards. That damage reduction to 1,200 is kind of brutal, considering it doesn't have much health and its speed kind of sucks. Um, 3 turns of 75% chance to dodge is nice, but with very low health and not good speed, it's not going to make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, It does have some nice team plays with being a swap in dodger, so you can swap into uh um, a Thor, and then instantly try to take it out with the distraction moves. So it does have a nice team play with tanks, but other than that, uh, it's in the same boat as Diplodocus.
Yeah. Although I would have to say against an Ontrax, even if you can, you keep on distracting it. Uh, I'm pretty sure 2 superior strikes takes it out. It's the poor HP. But
Yeah, that's true.
in that scenario, you're probably gonna try to evasive stance first, and then get a rampage up. Hopefully, they don't hit you through that dodge. If they do hit you through that dodge, well, you're screwed. So, well, it's much more reliant on the dodge, but good news for it. Did get that dodge buff, so there's that. Moving on, Paramalock. So Paramalock, 4.8k health, 1.3k damage, 126 speed, no crit, 5% crit, which is basically no crit, 0% armor, shielding strike, regen, run, instant charge, and greater stunning impact. So Paramalock, it's in many ways comparable to Edmonton, even though like it has less health than Edmonton, but much more speed. And even though like if you look at it, it seems like Edmonton would do more damage just because better multipliers, right? But if you actually look into it, Edmonton, it's built to get the heck out of there as soon as possible. And this Paramalock is more built to stay in and do some damage. So in the long run, Paramalock usually would do probably more damage just because of how it's built, how you want to play it. It's not like as supporty as Monoguandon is, right? So there's that going for it. Also, Shielding Strike helps with, I mean, not low HP, but lower than Monoguandon levels of HP. So there's that as well. You got 2 like stun, and this is the reason why it doesn't go out as soon, because you got 2 stuns there. Like it's free damage as long as your opponent's not immune to stuns. It's free damage. You throw out your 2 stuns. You come in, shielding strike, stun, and then you get out. So it's probably gonna stay in most scenarios a bit longer than say in Monteguandon.
Yeah, it exactly like you said. Eddie lacks kind of that damage to stay in there, where Paramalock has more of a being able to support those dinos. I think a little bit better than continuously stun, continuously do that damage. Um, its total damage overall will be a little bit better. But overall, the meta kind of hurts a bit being immune. So those stuns are kind of like meh at the moment. But it does have some nice plays, some nice team synergy. 126 speed's not too terrible, especially for how bulky it is.
Mm-hmm.
1300 damage. Two priority moves is nice, being able to instant charge and then get the heck out of there. Overall, decent dino. Probably not as good as Tormalog, but it does what it needs to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with that buff after with Tormalock. Okay, moving on. Paratators. So this also got like sort of a comeback-ish thing going for it. So 3.3k health, 1.3k damage, 129 speed, 20% crit, no armor, distraction, pounce, distracting impact, defense shattering impact. So yeah, this thing with 3 distracts. I mean, I don't know. It's a weird dino, honestly. Like 1.3k base, and it has good multipliers overall. I guess like its biggest enemy is still Superiority Strike, honestly. But besides that, it's similar to Monomimus, right? And Diplodocus. it has its purpose. It's to take out, a lot of the slower chompers. Well, not necessarily take out, maybe at least harm them, do some damage to them, right? Before it gets taken out due to, really low health. But, you start with Extracting Impact, then Pounce. That's the free turn of no damage. Then you go for Distract again, then Distracting Impact comes back again if you're still alive by then, or Pounce, whichever you want to go for. And also has Fan-Shattering Impact just in case it's against a bad matchup, which obviously would be tanks, right? So it's okay, I guess. How about you, Tim?
I kind of it got what needed to get rid of Ready to Crush
Ready
because
Crush
Ready to
sucks.
Crush on Puritator it was pretty bad. Puritator just has too little health.
Mm-hmm.
For Ready to Crush be useful. Um, but having 3 distraction gives it more of a purpose. Like you said, it's in the same exact boat as MONOMIMUS, Diplo. It can take out those chompers, support your tanks a bit. And then if it does come up against a tank, it can defense shattering impact, being able to do 1950 damage to that. 129 speed's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So anything slower than it that doesn't have superiority strike,
Mm-hmm.
it could do a lot of damage. So overall, decent dino. Don't over level it. If you're looking for a good dino to get, Magna Pirator is definitely one for the books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's that. Moving on. Oh wow, we actually have a pretty extensive list for A minus. Sarcoryxes. So Sarcoryxes, 4.2k health, 1.3k damage, 118 speed, 5% crit, 25% armor with armor piercing strike, greater stunning strike, immobilize, and ferocious impact. So we want to start on this one, Tim?
It can beat Thor.
Yay! It's not too
No,
much of an
it's
achievement though. Thor's
it's
not
a,
great at
yeah,
matchups.
it's a pretty good dino overall. I mean, it can boost its own stats. It can prevent Dracosera from swapping out or whatever. Um, keeping the game to do it to kill it off. 118 speed is a really good speed tier because it outspeeds everything it needs to, like from Monostego to any of the chompers to uh the tanks as well. Um, so it has a good kit. The kit is kind of, I mean, the versatility of the kit is nice. The amount of damage that kit does without a ferocious boost is kind of disappointing,
Mm-hmm.
but it does have the bulk to back it up. And 1300 damage with a ferocious impact behind it isn't a bad thing at all. It can do a lot of damage really quick.
Right, ferocious impact. One of the probably one of the best moves in the game. Definitely top tier, right? Yeah. Overall, ferocious impact, then greater shining strike. Basically, that's like a greater shining impact next turn. So it's gonna do a lot of damage, like 2,925 on turn one. That's pretty decent. And again, with the 118 speed, like it's the other thing about having 118 speed is, it doesn't have any speed ties. Like it's literally the only 118 speed dino in the game, which is pretty funny. But aside from that, Mobilize is pretty fun. There's a lot of stuff that you probably want to immobilize in the game. Drake Sarah being one of the big ones, right? So, yeah, overall, pretty interesting kit. Like, Immobilize has a lot of pretty fun uses, actually. Not only just for, like, swap prevention. Like, you could just use that just to get a one-turn CD down, so you could start with a stun and then go for impact if that's necessary, right? In some certain scenarios, actually, you probably would want to do that. So and also it does that armor piercing strike, which is kind of underrated in its kit. Ferocious boosted armor piercing strike. That's an armor piercing impact. So there's that. Okay. Moving on to Schoolosaurus. So Schoolosaurus, one of the hardest to obtain dinos in the game, just because, you can't get skull DNA that easily. 4,440 HP, 1,000 damage, 117 speed, 5% crit, 30% armor, null strike, rampage, tracking rampage, long protection, and swap and nullification. So, Tim, talk about this thing.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Giga Spica, so to speak.
Giga Spica?
It has, yeah, because it has a lot. It has this, but it can go offensive as a tank, having a two ramp. Its kit's nice because it can deal with a lot of different situations. It's not gonna be able to chew through armor, but it can know the upcoming dodge buff. It does have that turn one rampage if it needs it. It has distracting rampage, which will help its 4,400 HP, 30% armor, and it has long protection if it needs to. If it is going up against a tank or something that can't destroy shield, it does get that additional bulk as well. It does come with probably the worst swapping move in the game, swapping null. It does have some uses, but overall, it's not a very good swapping.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting dino. It's hard, like you said, it's hard to get. 117 speed is fairly nice. It means it's going fast. Chompers or most of the other tanks, it can take a hit with long protection. It's going to be able to take hits from speedsters and stuff like that. A fairly decent dino overall. But like I said, with the other dinosaurs, this isn't something I would go above level 20 because it can get a hybrid any patch, which could be a fairly good hybrid as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I personally would take this over Giga Spica. I think just personally, Giga Spica is has more linear set, right? This thing you could play around with its set with the 117 speed. You could, I guess, potentially set up on a slower dino like a Thor, a Trontorex, or whatever. If you set up with a long protection, then you also have Distracting Rampage up next turn with a 30% armor, over 4k health. If you got both long protection and your opponent distracted, you're probably not going to take too much damage if they don't get rid of all those conditions, right? So that's pretty fun. Also got that just Rampage deals some more damage. Got two times multipliers. So despite the pretty bad base damage, you could potentially output an okay-ish amount of damage. It's just if you're really using it for Revenge Killer, I mean, it really depends on what you're like. If you really want to go super greedy and set up a long protection, that might be a bit more difficult just because of its terrible base damage, right? But if you're just going for like a setup so you could get Distracting Rampage next turn, then you could Revenge Kill with a Rampage. That will give you much more leeway against it'll open up more scenarios where you could set yourself up, right? So interesting dino overall, but again, don't overlevel this thing. If this thing ever gets a hybrid in the future, it might become pretty interesting. And yeah, it's super expensive to make. It's for those who don't have it at all, it's literally impossible to create at the moment without the help of any sanctuaries where your alliance could throw in, and you spend your precious materials on Skulosaurus, which not a lot of people would do. So moving on. Spinonyx. So, Spinonyx, one of my favorite designs, which a lot of people hate on Spinonyx's designs. Well, screw you. I like it. So, looking at its stats, 4,350 health, 1,000 base damage, 124 speed, 5% crit, no armor, minor rending attack, lethal wound, precise rampage, definite rampage, and immune to D-cells. So, let's start out with the obvious. Lethal wound, obviously got a bit of a hit this patch, right, with the immune stuff. But it did get some help, right? The immune to D-cell is nice. So I guess the biggest problem with it is still like if you can't wound anyone, like even though you have two decent multipliers, like your base damage, you're not gonna do that much damage for what you're trying to do, right? Unlike Schoolosaurus, which has the same base damage and the same two times multipliers, Schoolosaurus could definitely take more damage than Spinonyx can. So what Spinonyx has over it is obviously the speed and I guess a bit more damage with the definite and precise, right? And it also can't get decelled. So there's that as well, and also has that lethal wound, which again has pretty problematic. As for the basic attack, minor rending attacks, it's a pretty decent basic attack, although it's only what 0.34% of the opponent's max HP. But I mean, it's in situations where you probably don't want to use one of your rampages, which that's very very rare since you could rotate them with no problem. I mean, I guess it's a fun, it's a fun one to have around. So, anyways, Spinonyx, Tim.
Yeah, I think Spinonyx has probably a top 3 kit in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just its biggest downfall is it can be distracted, but anything, just about everything with distraction doesn't come with immunity. Outside of Magna, MONOMIMUS, and Proceratho. So you can deal with a lot of different dinos with Spinonyx.
Mm-hmm.
With Precise Rampage, both of its rampages basically got buffed this not buff, but become more
Useful.
yeah, more useful, being that cloak and evasive abilities are getting a buff.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean there is that. And then it can, just like any bleeder, it can bleed out tanks outside of the top two. Um, and then it does have, if it does need to deal damage without uh wanting to use a rampage, it does have a minor rending attack. Like it can use minor rending attack as a revenge kill. 124 speed's not a bad 34% of an opponent's HP is pretty good for revenge killing. It does come with fairly good bulk for what it does, but the damage output overall is just not too great.
Mm-hmm. I mean, before we move on from this line, one quick comparison I do want to make is comparing this with Spontosuchus. The reason why I personally think Spontosuchus is a bit better than this is, first of all, the obvious 129 speed. 129 speed. That's a different standard, right? And also the crit impacts it just does more damage on a crit impact, right? And with these kind of builds, they're not here to stick around too long. So go in, get a quick hit, and then in Spinonyx's case, you could swoop out, and not Spinonyx, Spinotosuchus' case, you could swoop out. In this guy's case, probably you get another hit in before you die. So that's why I personally would think Spinotosuchus is slightly better, but I do like Spinoonyx's design a bit better. So there's that. Moving on. Second last on this list, Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus, poor thing. Is this like, isn't Stegosaurus like the worst unique in the game? Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
It got the biggest indirect nerf probably in the history of this game.
Yeah, poor thing. 4.5k health, 1000 damage, 128 speed, 5% crit, no armor, Superiority Strike, Lethal Swoop, Cleanse and Swoop, Instant Invincibility, and Swap and Invincibility. Like, overall, I'm a huge fan of the kit, right? Lethal Swoop, Cleanse, it's pretty fun with that Swap and Invincibility, which, again, is one of my favorite, swap-in moves that never goes on any of my favorite dinos. Instant Invincibility, like, overall, not a bad kit. If you put it in a vacuum, it's not bad. But again, we're not playing it in a vacuum. We have a whole structure around it, right? Whole environment around it, and that environment just wants to rip it apart and and just force it to run away before doing anything, right? A lot of the immunes, and like I mean, it's like even against stuff like it actually does decent against like say a Trico or whatever. Are you really gonna lethal swoop into your next Dino knowing that it's gonna get hit by Trico's defense shattering rampage, right? Like, I mean, I'd honestly just let my Sticky Directs die in there instead. Like, I would, I would wager, 70% chance that the next Dino it's gonna swoop into is probably gonna be more worthful, have more worth. I don't think worthful is a word. Than the Sticky Directs in this matter right now. So again, decent kit in a vacuum. Meta just just completely just blocks it.
Yeah, this Sticky Directs has basically became a center point of swapping teams, which that style of play isn't really relevant, but I mean it does have some decent synergy. You can lethal swoop into Thylacator. Like you said, if you happen to be up against a Trico, you that combo is pretty nice to have. Um, the instant invincibility is its biggest downfall right now because it doesn't have the means to not take damage in order to get to that instant invincibility. Um, it needs a turn one stall move in order to get to that lethal. Um, it's a nice lower aviary dino, kind of like Alan Kyle, but overall, with the amount of immunities, it becomes a one-way street. If you try to lethal swoop, a lot of times people are just gonna swap in an immune dino, and then you just wasted a turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, even though the kit looks complex, it's one of the most predictable dinos in the game. Like, you're either gonna turn one, cleanse and swoop out of there, or you're just gonna Security Strike turn one and the lethal swoop turn two. Like, incredibly predictable. When it's on the stage, obviously, usually can't really predict it when it's gonna swap into invincibility, unless you already you saw your opponent had it before. Then might be a bit more easier to predict. But yeah, overall, um, I think it's pretty safe to call it the worst unique in the game at the moment, which is kind of sad because I am a huge fan of its kit, but oh well. What can you do? Speaking of more bleeders, last one, all of these at the end are bleeders in A minus. A lot of bleeders in A minus. So, Sucatator, 4.5k health. Did Sucatator change in 1.10? I don't think it did. It was Thylacator that got a
I
bit
don't think it did.
of a nerf. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah.
4.5k health, 1070 damage, 116 speed, 20% crit, no armor, with Superiority Strike, Lethal Wound, Nullifying Impact, and Distraction. I mean, Sucatator, it is what it is. Like, folks already know what it is. It's been like this for the last 6-7 months already. Came from like the literal worst dino in the game to a really really decent rare hybrid option, right? And again, suffered the same fate as a lot of the other bleeders. The immune thing, it's pretty big, and unlike again Spinotrasuchus, which is probably one of the better bleeders in the game. If you really want to go that route, Thylacator is probably better, but just a better use in say mid to lower arenas. I wouldn't say lower arenas, just mid arenas, I guess. But just in comparison, it just doesn't have the damage that Spinotrasuchus has, or even Spinonyx. Spinonyx, which is notorious for its low base damage, has much more damage than this thing. What it does have in its favor is if you do get a good matchup, lethal wound, instant distraction. That's it. That's its money combo, right? You bleed it, stall for another turn, and then next turn, if you have enough damage, take it out with null impact. Go for it. If not, well, you do have a decent amount of HP, so there's that. For what it does, right? 116 speed. It's fine. I mean, it's faster than the 109s, which is what you're mainly using this thing to do anyways, right? bleed a Trico, bleed a Dio, right? That stuff. So, I mean, not terrible, but overall, a bit of a decline, but still decent, right?
Yeah. Fourth. It's a really good dino. It's a
Mhm.
really good early game dino. It's very easy to make. It has a nice kit. It's not gonna have the immunities down in the lower areas like it does in the mid to higher tiers. So it's a nice dino to get early in the game. Like you said, its main weakness is it has no damage output outside. Um, its versatility is nice, but the versatility is kind of okay-ish when you can't really do anything with that versatility in terms of damage. But it is a rare hybrid, so you get what you get from it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if it does get that 20% crit on a null impact, that's okay damage. So, if you're looking for damage with Sucutator when you can't bleed, just pray that your null impact crits. So there's that. So, anyways, there you go. A minus. The school of dinos that, I mean, in general, these are I guess aside from maybe like Schoolosaurus and Stygidrax, these are your main dinos that you'll see a lot in the mid to lower tier arenas. Definitely wouldn't see a lot of these competing with higher tier dinos for the most part. I mean, there's some, right? Maybe throw Suctator in some kind of matchup. Carbocer not carb is it called carbo yeah Carboceratops. Maybe Monoguandon, depends. But overall, you're probably not gonna use these against teams that do have stuff like Indogen 2, Ardent and Maximo, that stuff, right? But they're all, most of them are pretty fun. Really decent kits. Again, a lot of these got shafted by the meta, and some of these are just not, just flat out not good enough to be higher. Some of these have been here for a while, like Alan Kylos, right? So, not much we can do with these. So, anyways, again, that's me for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, thanks for Temerity for stopping by, and like and enjoy this video. Subscribe to your channel for some more Jurassic World content, and we'll see you guys in the next one.